Welcome back to the Interior Analysis Podcast. I'm your host, Jelani Kelly,
I'm Evan Westman.
And I'm David Jones.
and today we are discussing the Will Smith movie, I, Robot. I've never seen this movie before. I think both of you have, yes? What were your experiences with it?
I'll go first because I remember this was a movie I used to watch a lot as a kid. I used to have like one of those DVD player holder things that could like have two DVDs on one of the flips, and you could pack like 22, 24 DVDs in there. And that was like the peak of my life. And then I got like a portable DVD player, and I used to have that all the time in the car. And I Robot was definitely in that circulation. I used to think it was awesome. I That or Jurassic Park, whichever one I saw first, was probably my introduction to sci-fi, and I just thought it was like so much fun. I thought it was so action packed. I thought the robot was so cool. I thought Will Smith was so cool. I thought it was all so cool. And I had a different experience this time. But as a kid, I really enjoyed it.
Had you not seen it since you were like pretty little?
Oh yeah, I had not seen it since I was probably like 6, 7, because I used to watch it a lot, and then I just like that's how I was with movies. I used to like burn them and turn them. Like I'd be like, all right, I've seen this movie
Yeah,
75
because I think this
times.
came out when we were 5, so that must have been a
Yep,
lot in those 2 years.
yep.
I was 7.
So old. So I only had seen this once when I was 15. It was within like a year of getting on IMDb and doing reviews. I think this was like around number 50. And for some reason, I had like kind of hyped it up. There were like a few movies that like I think just appeared on a bunch of polls on IMDb that I came across that I kind of tricked myself into thinking were good because they just showed up a lot, and I think this was one of them. So it ended up being a little bit of a letdown. I didn't hate it, but most of my memory of it returning this time was that it was just like vaguely annoying. Like the robots, Shia LaBeouf, and the computer villain I remembered being annoying. I did not remember how bad Bridget Moynahan's character is. It is quite bad. I don't want to like disparage her too much as an actress, but it was easily the worst part of this movie second time around. They did not write her well.
This was directed by Alex Proyas, who's directed movies such as The Crow, Knowing with the Wild Nick Cage, and Gods of Egypt. I can't say the whitewashing in that film was his fault, but he directed that film.
Well, I hear it didn't have much else going for it
Nope,
either.
nope. Chadwick was the only black Egyptian god in that movie. Everybody else had a spray tan. Written by Jeff Vintar, known for Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within. And that's it for now. He's set to write Spaceless this year, or it's a film releasing this year. I don't know what that is. And then Akiva Goldsman was the other writer. Batman Forever, Batman and Robin, A Beautiful Mind, Da Vinci Code, I Am Legend, Transformers: The Last Night. So he's had ups and downs in his writing career.
That sounds like largely downs
Yeah, more
for
downs
my
than
money.
ups. I mean, I Am Legend. I heard the Da Vinci Code was decent, right? And Beautiful Mind was nominated for something. I'm pretty sure, not a Raspberry. It was a good award.
Yeah, that was an Academy Award. I think that. No, I don't think Russell Crowe won that year, but he was
It
nominated.
won for something. Did it win
I think
Best
it won for
Picture?
screenplay. Did it win
Let
Best
me look it up.
Picture? Ooh. But I watched that in my psychology class. It was very good. So yeah, that's what I'm saying. He has a few hits. He has a few misses. He's up and he's down.
Oh no, it won 4 Oscars.
Jesus.
I'm pulling up what. Yeah, Best Picture, Best Actress for Jennifer Connelly, Best Director, and yeah, Akiva Goldsman's sole credit on the screenplay, Best Adapted.
So ups and downs.
Yeah.
He also executive produced Hancock, so he's worked with Wild Smith a couple of times. Yeah, I just thought it was interesting. I wanted to look up the people that made this movie.
I know Alex Proyas also did Dark City, which I haven't seen, but seems like from the ratings that I've looked at, it's apparently like the best of his career.
So my initial things. This is my first time seeing it. My dad told me when I was younger that it would be too scary for me. And as someone who still has an irrational fear of the quote unquote monster popping up on me to kill me after I've seen a movie, he was probably right. For whatever reason, I remember seeing the robots were evil the whole movie. And I thought it'd be the inciting incident or something. Like, I was waiting for, like, alright, now the robots are going to be evil. Then I realized they weren't even in the film yet. And then I thought the rest of the movie would be about survival, but I was sorely wrong. But I still got in the third act, so I was okay with that. I remember being spoiled that it was Vicky all along. I don't remember where, but it wasn't a surprise to me. And I'm really glad Spoon and Calvin didn't get together because it would have been forced. I know this around this time, action movies would force male and female leads together, despite zero chemistry, like Daredevil, X-Men. She had Joe Rise of Cobra. Remember that movie? I do. Spider-Man, a lot of superhero movies actually. Troy. I don't remember if we said the leads didn't have chemistry in Troy, but didn't they just end up loving each other for no reason or something?
Well, I mean, Helen in Paris is a You can't have a story about the Trojan War without
No,
that.
not that one. I think I was talking about Brad and
Oh,
Rose
I
Byrne's
don't, I
character.
don't think they have an aggressive lack of chemistry. They're not like the most shippable, but I didn't remember it being a problem.
Eh. Anyway, fun facts. This movie was supposed to release July 2nd, 2004, but was pushed back due to wanting to avoid competition with Spider-Man 2. Imagine that. I mean, it made sense because Spider-Man 2 made money, didn't it?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, they made a lot of money. They
yeah.
And
made the right
Spider-Man
choice.
1, I think at the
Yeah.
time was like, it might have been in like top 10 biggest grossing movies ever, so
Yeah.
it would have been a good call, probably.
Still, just imagine it, because that's the only Spider-Man we had at the time, and Evan and I constantly make fun of it. Hey, we naturally brought up Spider-Man this time. Anyway, it had a 120 million budget up against against a $353 million box office, so it did pretty damn good. And I thought Sonny would be an actor. I know when I was watching the movie, and he was. It was Alan Tudyk. I should have guessed that because he normally plays characters that aren't human. He was K2SO in Rogue One, Mr. Nobody in Doom Patrol. I think he has an alien show. I don't know. I don't remember what it's called, but he's an alien in that trying to be human. And I'm just like, yeah, that makes sense. He's also Joker and Clayface in the Harley Quinn show. So I wanted to. It was difficult for me to come up with a topic for this movie, so I kind of just wanted to address the movie as a whole before we get into David and Evan's topics. I don't think it was aware that it was the kind of movie that's made fun of for being like super 2000s now. Like, that's why I made you guys watch the trailer. It's literally the one man in a world alone type of movie. And
Yeah,
that trailer was,
That trailer is like the most 2000s trailer
oh
ever.
man, that trailer was hilarious. The text on the screen, the upbeat, fast paced music, and the corny lines, and oh
They
man,
also, I noticed this because I watched it for some reason. Watched that trailer like on repeat many times before seeing the movie.
what?
I don't really remember why. I had a phase in high school where I just watched a shit ton of trailers, and that was one that I went back to a lot. But they switched Will Smith's lines with the other guy, the police chief, his like superior. They like flip their dialogue. And I think it happens with some other people, but I know theirs at a couple points. They like reverse who says what in the trailer, which is just strange.
The whole trailer was strange. It was also the era of like flash cuts with just like bright lights moving from one scene to the next for no reason. I guess to simulate excitement. It kind of reminded me of that "you wouldn't steal a car" warning or PSA or whatever that was that played before all those DVDs back then. It was something, and it didn't really show like the robots turning evil as like a selling point. So I still have no idea where I got that concept from. But yeah. That being said, I think the movie as a whole is entertaining for what it was. It was dumb and fun. and then did its job in making a lot of money. It was a summer blockbuster, but that summer must have been hella cheesy because you got Spider-Man 2 2 weeks before it, so it was a this is probably one of the most 2000s summers when it comes to movies ever. I want to talk about the performances as well. The acting was decent. It was Will Smith being Will, but like I like to think he was trying because a lot of those lines were really awkward.
Yeah.
I was just like, only Will Smith could make these lines work. Some of these lines work, man. I can only remember, well, barely remember the one at the end, the last action line of just "you gotta die" or whatever he said to Vicky. Like it could have been way more clever. It was supposed to be like the '80s action final line where it's like wrapping up the whole movie, killing the villain, but he was just like, "Yeah, you gotta go." I was just like, "Really? That's what you got? All right, well."
But like Will Smith can pull that off. Like almost
Yes.
no other actor can pull off some of the lines. And sometimes he can't overcome it. But he gives it like his best.
Yeah, I think everyone was right about Moynihan's character. I don't know any other personality trait that she had other than stoic. I don't know if intelligent is a personality trait. She was that too, right? I already said Alan Tudyk seems to have a thing for like playing non-human characters, kind of like Andy Serkis, and he's really good at it. So, Shy McBride, who played Lieutenant John Bergen, Will Smith's superior in the movie, he might as well have had his character named Angry Black Captain, because I think that was just what he was. I don't know what it is or why it's even a stereotype, but no nonsense. He doesn't even have to be black, but just the no nonsense police captain, and then the rogue. Normally, it's for buddy cop movies where it's like a rogue, two rogues that just don't have their stuff together. But I thought it was funny, and I wrote. I'm not gonna say the whole quote, but I wrote in the Ice Cube's quote from 21 Jump Street when he was talking about the stupid stereotype, and then went off in a rant as an angry black captain. It's funny. Also, no disrespect, but why is Shia LaBeouf in the movie?
Right? That's what I thought when I saw him. I was like, yo, of all the times, because I saw this a lot, and I have to have a lot of memories from this movie, like the army at the end, the jumping, Vicky, him being a robot, specifically the visual of when the robots turn red. But I did not remember Shia LaBeouf. I was like, what?
I thought he was going to be way more important.
And his dialogue. Like, when you're talking about, like, when Jelani's saying that this is the most 2000s basic exchange, no character, actual, look at the exchange between Shia LaBeouf and Will Smith's character. Both their dialogue is garbage.
Character quirk was just not knowing how to curse, and Will Smith telling him to stop.
Shit hot spoon. What the hell?
I thought he was gonna be more. They showed him at the beginning and then at the end. I don't even know if he was mentioned
nothing to do
in the middle of the story. Was it just to connect him to the city? I don't even think the city was really a character in this. So why?
Like, was he just on set for 2 shoot days and Will Smith was like, yo, Shia, want to be in a movie? Like, this character didn't feel real.
Well, this
Why was
came
he
out,
there?
I think, the same... This is a thing that I have heard they do with the actors. Is like, if there's somebody who's gonna be in something big, all of a sudden everyone is trying to get them in their thing somehow. And maybe that happened with Shia LaBeouf right about now with Holes. Because I think that was from the same time. So maybe that was what they were
going to say. Transformers wasn't out
I
yet.
could be way off base there.
Wasn't Transformers like 2008, 2009 or something?
It was 07, so I don't think they would have been Well, probably it was too early for them to be jumping on Transformers.
But he was popular. He was on. He had
Even
a TV show on
Stevens, right?
Disney Channel. They had that movie, and then Holes, and then I feel like he did something else too.
Disturbia,
Yeah, Disturbia.
where he's a creep. I couldn't even make it all the way through that movie because I just hated him so much in it. He truly has nothing to do in this movie, though. Like, there's zero reason for him to be in it.
They really tried to make it a humans versus robots thing at the end, and I was just like, I feel less than nothing right now. Because they were like, he said, being outside, it's human rights. And I was just like, what? Okay. All right, man, you're in this movie. Good job. Also, the CGI doesn't hold up in a lot of places, but the design of the USR robots, I think, is solid, as it shows what I think a big old company would make, as in something like sleek, but trying to make it look friendly looking with the human face, quote unquote, like friendly in quotes, but it's still coming off as creepy. Like y'all really don't know. You should have just left the face off. It doesn't really age that well. The world also seemed inconsistent. Like I felt most of it was green screen, and I had issues with like certain set pieces, like his grandma, Gigi. Her house looked like it was like from the '60s and just brought into 2035. But like, how does that make sense? If they're in 2035, like, why would she have a '60s style looking home? There's no way she lived through the 1960s and is now still chilling in 2035.
Yeah, she could.
Yeah, that's
No.
but that's the other thing that hit me watching it this time was registering that like, oh, it's 2035. So like, how old was Will Smith when he filmed this? Do we know?
I don't
It's
know.
like,
I did clock that the first time I saw it, though. I was like, so he might actually be born, like, his character might be basically, like, our age.
that's what I
Like,
was thinking
given,
too.
like, when the
Really?
character is born. Well, we
Well,
don't
yeah,
get an
'cause
exact
say,
age,
like,
but if he's
if
35...
say he's like, yeah.
What the hell?
And say when he filmed this, he was like 28, 29, 30. Then like, yeah, like the person that character would be about our age, would be our generation. So it's like his grandma, like, I don't know why she's chilling in 2035. She looks pretty good. I don't think that's how her house would look.
Yeah. Yeah. Just a lot of it. Like even his own apartment. Well, I no, I get that more actually because he didn't trust robots. That's why he had that analog CD player.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting they made his house, like, or his apartment just like, this is, like, a 2004 apartment, but in this universe, that's retro.
Right. And then I didn't even actually make the comparison between his and old girl's apartment.
Hmm.
Like hers is sleeker, modern.
Minimalist. There's like no mess in her place, whereas he's
Right.
got like stuff everywhere.
Don't you walk into the bedroom in his place? That's crazy. Like the front door leads straight into his bedroom, and then the living room is to the right. That's weird. Also, why was she going to church late at night by herself? I think the robot was doing her a favor. She should have kept herself inside. It's dangerous outside. But the Audi was fire. I like the Audi. Even though, like, you can tell it was just... They just put, like, giant covers on the wheels and modified it. It still looked cool to me. His car. R.I.P. that. But that's what I had for the movie as a whole. It delivered on what it was. That's about all I'll say. But if we want to move on to how this ages as an AI movie, Evan, I'll let you take over.
Okay, yeah, and so you guys can feel free. I don't really have questions here, but feel free to jump in with your thoughts as I go. So I don't think of this as something that examines AI in a very deep or interesting way, but I was thinking about how, like, we are closer right now to when this movie takes place than to when it came out. It's been 19 years since it came out. So that's a lot of time to have a good amount of other AI stories, AI fiction come in, and a lot of time where we now have a number of things in real life that we refer to as artificial intelligence. They don't look anything like this movie, but I think there's still a few ways. It's a little interesting to look at, like, where it actually kind of still is a little bit relevant in terms of how it deals with AI. Again, not that relevant because it's not really trying to say much as far as I can tell. But there's a few things where it's like, okay, this is kind of like how we relate to AI, and others where it very much isn't. So I think one thing is that the fact that we don't have robots like this, like, I don't know much about it. I kind of think we could make robots like this right now. And the fact that we haven't, I think, is mostly because of movies like this that kind of teach us to fear humanoid robots. Also, the robots in this are kind of annoying, and I would really hate to live somewhere where you have a bunch of NS5s walking around trying to help you cross the street or whatever. That would be terrible. But I think just like the uncanny valley of the faces in this, like, I think that's a large reason why maybe we don't have that, even though maybe we could. But a major thing I've heard people talk about with real life AI, like this has nothing to do with like AI fiction, just like actual algorithms, is that the danger is less about a computer gaining sentience and it's more about what we program AI to do, how it's regulated, and what we want to do with it. So that comes up a little bit here, where actually, I guess it doesn't exactly. Because one thing I was thinking about that could have made this age a little better, and I don't fault the movie for this, but if Bruce Greenwood's character had actually been behind all of it the whole time and had some, I don't know what kind of motive would have brought him to do that. But if he had been making all the robots like turn against Spooner and stuff like that, that would kind of track better with where it looks like AI in real life is going, rather than having it be Vicky as this sentient computer that turns all the robots against us. Like there's still something there, but it doesn't track great. I don't fault the movie for that because I think it's really unfair to hold sci-fi to the standard of predicting the future. Like that's incredibly unfair to anyone who writes sci-fi.
Then don't make a sci-fi movie. Should have predicted it. Sorry.
Well, but I think I'm gonna disagree with that. I know you're about not being entirely serious, but like a lot of sci-fi is cautionary. So if they do predict the future, it's probably a bad thing. Anyway, like I think it would have been a little more interesting from a modern 2020s perspective to see a human be behind all of it. That would just track better with where we're at. In '04, I don't know that they would have had any way of like seeing that far ahead and seeing that as a logical outcome. But one thing that I think is pretty interesting to think about in terms of modern AI is you have the three laws in this movie, and they seem pretty solid. Like even by the end, I don't feel like there really is anyone or any like event in this movie that refutes the three laws. Like they seem pretty solid. We don't really have that as far as I can tell with modern AI. Like there's not really regulation of how you can use algorithms and like what you are and aren't allowed to do. Maybe I'm just not into it enough to know what restrictions there are, and I think we're kind of like creating them. Like you see stuff where like YouTube can flag certain videos or they demonetize stuff, or like certain social media platforms are trying to deal with like managing hate speech, but we aren't really there yet with being able to do that. Like it's still kind of in beta phases at the moment, it seems like. So that's kind of an interesting thing where like people seem to trust robots in this world a lot because the three laws are there and are like pretty airtight. And that's something that we don't really have with modern AI. This was a thought experiment I heard a few years ago, and maybe this is somewhere you guys can chime in. It was a project that some people in my high school were doing about like the ethics of self-driving cars, because they came up with this experiment where if the car has to choose between killing some pedestrians or killing the passengers, like just this theoretical scenario where it would have to do one or the other, whose safety should the car be programmed to prioritize? And there's a little bit of that in this movie where like Spooner is mad that the robot saves him over the girl in that flashback. So it's like kind of showing a crack in the three laws where it's like, yes, the robots are meant to value human, like they protect humans over themselves, but then like where is the line between which humans do you prioritize? And it doesn't really go anywhere with it, but it does bring it up somehow. And there are actually self-driving cars in this movie. It doesn't really do anything with that. But, and again, I don't really see that as a fault. But self-driving cars is a realistic possibility that's been on the horizon for a bit in the real world. Did you guys have anything there? I have some more, but I want to leave some air if you guys want to chime in.
Didn't the Matrix and Terminator do the whole humans are bad / bad to other humans thing?
Yeah, and I think
That's
makes
a lot of
this
sci-fi.
yeah, the whole humans are the problem thing felt so tired and so generic to me in this. I don't know if it would have at the time, but yeah, The Matrix was before this and Terminator, so
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, the part that really was inconsistent for me, and the element that I think if it was more consistent or they really thought about it more, because like in a book it's probably, or I didn't read the book, but in just I imagine in a book you could constrict it more and have the interpretation kind of mean more because you might be in a character's point of view. But with the movie, the three laws, there was just it really took me out. Like on the surface it sounded like it made a lot of sense and it worked out well, but then like you said, there's that scene and it's like, okay, well, if he's a grown man and you just got him out and he can swim on his own and he's telling you to go get her, then like he's safe and you should obey his command. That's 1 and 2. So I don't really, so like there's that discrepancy. And then the scene where like it's like, see, I think it's still in the first act, or it might just be the very beginning of the second act, where they're like looking for Sonny, and there's like the room with all of the androids, and they're asking like, where is he? And they're like, among us or whatever they say, and he's like looking for him, and then Sonny starts running. I'm like, why can't the other androids, like, you just tell them? Because Vicky didn't control them yet. So I'm like, why can't you just give them a command to grab him? And so there's just different moments where, because of the laws and what I was being presented, I was like, this movie doesn't feel that well thought out.
yeah, and another crack I'm kind of seeing now that you're talking about it in the three laws is like, how does a robot interpret harm? Because it seems like it only does it physically from what we see in this movie. Like, because I can just imagine a scene where like you have two people trying to compete for what they want the robot to do, and it probably just has to pick one. But if there's nobody whose like life is in danger or like is physically being endangered at that point, like maybe even think about it like this: like, say a robot is, maybe there's a class difference in this case where like a richer person is commanding the robot to do one thing and then a poorer person commands it and it's the same one. Like, that's a situation where it could cause all sorts of problems, and that is like, nothing like that is brought up in this movie. And it seems like this doesn't seem like it's trying to go that deep, but that's a question that is kind of, I think it would be raised very fast in this world after you send all the robots out. Apparently they don't seem to run into that day to day, but I think something like that would probably happen. So another thing that comes up is Spooner has a problem with how robots lack heart and emotion. Like he says in the scene with where he talks about how he got saved from the car accident. He's like, a human would have known the difference. But he also doesn't want them to have emotions or autonomy. I'm not mad at that contradiction. I feel like that's a valid belief to have about technology. But if that's all there, the existence of Sonny should bring out those beliefs more than they do. Like, that should be a point of conflict for him in a way that it never really is. And then at the end, his prejudice against robots basically saves the day. But then he's shaking hands with Sonny at the end as if he's not bigoted against robots, when every single thing that has happened in the movie up to this point has affirmed like that his prejudice is smart in this case. and then they're just like, oh yeah, he had an arc this whole time. When? Like, he didn't have any progression
It's even
there.
like his
Yeah.
prejudice is even advertised in the trailer about him being the only one to be right. If be whatever the line he said about if being the only thinking you're the only sane person on earth is making you crazy, then I guess I'm crazy or whatever he said.
Well, that's the thing is like there really is no change. Like it is everything Vicky does and that whole plot point with like the takeover is just this like almost MacGuffin to fill up the time because if Sonny jumped out of that box and he was like, "What's up, Will Smith?" and Will Smith was like, "What's up, robot?" and he was like, "I killed someone," and Will Smith was like, "You're a robot. You can't kill someone." Yuck, 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 yuck. Then the movie's over. Because everything else is just like spectacle, and then they're like, "All right, and now we're gonna end," and all the characters are in the exact same position they were when we started.
Oof.
Yeah, it seems like they did a lot to like stretch out the mystery to
Filler.
just no like, and as far as I can tell, like there's no real plot holes, but there's kind of no why behind it. Like, well, I'll save that for your topic, David. But there's not plot holes in this that I can see so much as there's just like, what is it trying to say about what robots like role should be? I really wish it did that because it's really well positioned to look at our relationship to technology, and it kind of pays lip service to examining that, but it really doesn't. Like, I feel like this is a really good example of like the kind of movies I was talking about in the Kingsman video, where like they half-ass a theme and just act like they're about something, but they truly have nothing to say when you unpack it. This feels like a very prime example of that kind of movie.
100%. Because how are we supposed to feel? Because Sonny is clearly breaking the rules, but he's being praised for it, and no one's changed anything about how we're supposed to feel or view the world. Vicky has just been destroyed, who we didn't even develop or care about. We just saw her in the first act, and then she came back as a big bad because it was a cool set piece. And like you said, his Will Smith's character's worldview is just affirmed the whole time. And I hated it when he was like, "I miss the good old days." I was like, "When?" And he's like, "When humans were killed by other humans." I'm like, this is the first time. They literally just talked about earlier in the scene. He was like, "When had there ever been a murder or a crime committed by a robot?" And he's like, "Never." I'm like, this is literally the first time. And it was just the dialogue, the whole, like, I wasn't sold on any of it. I was like, how are these people thinking? Like, this doesn't make sense. This doesn't feel real.
You didn't buy Dr. Susan Calvin's arc?
Oof.
You didn't
Does
buy
she have one?
Arc.
From having no emotion to crying over the potential death of a robot, like,
What an arc. What a character. What a movie.
I mean, you could have even done, like, I'm thinking now of Minority Report, because that's another movie that is like a sci-fi crime movie that is centered around a mystery. But the revelations that come out in that movie when like Tom Cruise is discovering different things, like, it matters on a larger level about like whether pre-crime is viable. Like everything,
Yeah.
all of the like individual character story that's happening, like all of that mystery has potentially huge impacts on like the entire society that's there. And you could have probably done something like that. Like if the three laws are so sacred that a robot breaking them could like restructure all of society, which I think is a very easy route to take this movie in. Like, they do none of that. There's barely, like, there's a little bit, I guess. I guess it's not fair to say there's none. But they really do not capitalize on that. And they had a good model for how to do something like that from 2 years before, which maybe that's not enough time. But Minority Report is right there.
And same thing with the character. With Tom Cruise, his whole worldview was challenged because he was so about the system until it was turned on him. And you have Will Smith, and I forgot that he was a robot, and I was like, or part robot. and had his little prosthetic, and I was like, this is so cool. Like, you have a character who hates his robots, and part of him is robot, and I'm like, he hates himself. You could have a whole kind of just challenging of this worldview, but that gets thrown out the window in 2 seconds because it's 2004 and he's Will Smith, and they have to make cool quippy dialogue that goes nowhere.
Those effects are gnarly though. I hate them. Like his skin not being there is gross looking.
That was some special effects that aged decently, I think. I remember that.
I hated it. It looks gross.
I think you could even have Will Smith, like, he could still have a flat arc, but and not change his prejudice against technology and against robots. But you could do it in a more effective way where there's like more, like, we know that he's right the whole time. Like, there is so much evidence that these robots are being controlled by someone. Like, if you could throw in some more doubt there, maybe that could be something. Or again, use Sonny to challenge his perspectives and be like, okay, well, maybe if robots are more sentient and more autonomous, then things could be better if they're more like humans. I don't really agree with that, and I'm not sure if, like, that's a realistic route to take his character in. But have Sonny push up against his technophobia somehow.
Yeah, like, you can have, like you're saying, Will Smith not change and have Sonny just show the other side, and you can have them both be right and just kind of agree to disagree. But this movie doesn't even, that's just a higher class movie. That This movie is nowhere near that level. This movie is just, I think you described it really well when you were saying those movies that half-ass the theme. Like, this movie is trying to give every single perspective and audience member what they want with, like, the most basic forms of storytelling. And when you start to really look at it and, like, where the character's point of view is and what they should be thinking versus what they're doing and what the plot is and the story, you're just, it starts to unravel and doesn't stand as well. It has no legs.
I'm surprised they didn't have their like own term for the robots. Like, you know how during the zombie era of movies, everybody had their own term for zombies, like
Yeah.
Dead or Zed and the
Walkers.
Walkers, and yeah, like,
Bite
I'm surprised.
Bros. I don't know if that's a real one. I just came up with that.
Flesh eaters. I'm surprised they didn't have. I mean, he was calling him a canner, and that felt robotically charged. But that, like, not everybody. They just straight up called them robots. They didn't call them like gear men, or they didn't have their own term for it. I don't know. I felt they should have, but just calling them robots was. Yeah. There's other androids. That's another term.
Cyborgs.
Cyborgs. The machine.
Yeah. Or even like Blade Runner has like what are the
what are they called?
replicants is the
replicants.
name for them in that.
Yeah. Model 3 generative android Megan.
Iron
I'm
Man.
watching this. I was comparing this to Megan just because they sell the whole point of these androids as like service, and like they're gonna help you with your dogs and your house and your kids and your family, and like at a point in Megan, that's what they're starting to sell her as. And I was like, wow, I kind of like how Megan did it more.
She was dancing.
She was dancing.
Even
I
like
still need to see it.
Futurama does better, I think, in some regards with that. Like they have like a robot integrated society, and granted that's a very different like type of
Everything.
yeah, but like they kind of have some sort of world building fleshed out there for like where robots stand in society.
But I agree, for such an overdone cautionary tale in this genre, this film is not one of the best versions of that tale, in my opinion.
No.
Well, it gets itself too confused with that, because I think you could have made a very simple version of this that's just like robots bad. Like that could be like the half-assing it in a way that kind of works. I think it's whittling it down a little too much, but like you could have just done that and made like the like sentient robot bad. Like AI is something we should avoid. Sure. Whether I agree with that or not, it could have been cleaner.
Would you cut out Sonny if you did that?
Yeah, maybe. Like that could, or you could even make it like sentient AI good. But like you even have like this dichotomy of Sunny and Vicky are the two AIs with agency in this movie. And one of them's good, one of them's bad. And we don't even really have a clear difference between them with like what makes like it's just like Sunny wants to is just generally like kind of a nice being, and then Vicky is just Ultron, and like
Her logic is flawless.
they don't make a good distinction there.
Yeah. I forgot Ultron did this movie too.
The ending looks just like Age of Ultron with like hundreds of robots charging at a MacGuffin thing.
Yeah. 1000% just them swarming. Yeah, it's sad too, especially because it's adapted from like the material that gave birth to all of these ripoffs. So it's like you kind of wish that like the OG would get the treatment it deserves, but this was not it.
There's even like some points in this movie where I'm watching and I'm like, oh, like I can feel like the kernel of something good here. Like there's kind of an interesting idea, and like the mystery is working, and there's even some like good lines in some of those scenes, but they're very fleeting. Like they miss the mark really hard here. But I think there's an excellent movie that you could make out of this.
What about the man on the hill?
Oh, well, the last shot.
Yeah.
I
What's
have
it
no
mean,
idea
Evan?
what the hell that's trying to symbolize.
What's
It's
it mean?
acting so deep.
That's the thing that I literally was watching it at like 1 a.m. last night, and I was thinking, I was like, why is there so much religious imagery and conversation around Sonny's character? Like right before we're introduced to him, there's Will Smith and the girl talking about how Jesus walked on water, and that was like Will Smith's reason for like there could be one robot that goes crazy, and then Sonny jumps up out of nowhere, and then at the end there's this biblical shot of like pick up any character from like Abrahamic religion that was leading the people onward.
It's like
and there he
Moses with the
was.
10 Commandments. Like that's what that shot
Yeah.
evokes, I feel like.
And I was just like, so what are you trying to tell me? Because this is still, like we've already said, a robot who is defying your laws. And Will Smith, the protagonist, the point of view you're supposed to get me on, is telling me not to trust him. And you haven't changed my mind on that, but yet Will Smith trusts him specifically. So I just don't understand. Like the movie is so confused on, I think, what it's trying to say.
Moses and the 10 Commandments. Sonny and the 3 rules.
Maybe there was an early draft that had like a good version of that. It doesn't seem to be here, but
You know.
I think in its best form, you could even do something like that, like evoke the 10 Commandments and like in light of the 3 laws. But what is this movie trying to say about the 3 laws? I really can't tell.
They're perfect.
It seems like that. Like, I don't see anything by the end of this movie that refutes the 3 laws, even though we're like kind of poking holes. Textually, I feel like there's barely anything that invalidates them.
No, and there's no reason why Will Smith's character should change how he feels, because he doesn't ever admittedly change how he feels, but he just at the same time openly embraces Sonny. So it's just like they're showing you constant contradictions, and I don't understand as an audience member what we're supposed to make of that.
Well, that kind of brings up the last point I was going to make with this topic, which is I really hate the trope of making robots an allegory for prejudice. I think sci-fi can be a really good way to examine that in like a fantasy context, but robots I think are a very poor stand-in. Aliens can work. Animals can work.
Zootopia.
Zootopia, yeah. Zootopia does really well with that. X-Men does quite well with it. I feel like there's another example I'm forgetting. District 9 kind of does that. Even for all its faults, I think Avatar, at face value, could work as a colonization allegory. On paper, I don't like the way James Cameron goes about it, but like on paper, I think that works. Like there's nothing at like a premise level that hinders that.
Or even more specifically, a like animated sci-fi movie that features like that kind of prejudice and otherism towards the robot, and they also hit on the danger of the robot to society and how it could be the weapon, while also hitting that other trope of how humans are the real danger. But it's actually really good as the Iron Giant.
Yeah, because like he's ultimately able to be controlled. So in a way, their fear is sort of validated, but like not. But it's still kind of tech based. I guess that one works a little bit, but maybe it's better because he's the only. Like it's not a whole like species in that. Maybe.
Yeah, he's the only robot.
Yeah, I just have a really hard time when you try to do that with a robot character because, for one thing, it's almost impossible to sell me on a robot having humanity or like personhood in that way. Like, if you want to just say that like these robots can think for themselves, fine. If it's just C-3PO walking around, like, sure, I'll buy that. But if we start talking about like, should R2D2 have certain rights, like, or something like that, that just gets so confusing, or not confusing, it gets really complicated and messy in ways that I just find frustrating. To me, a robot dying has all the tragedy of dropping your phone in the pool. It's
Even
not
Terminator
a death.
2, when he kills himself and he puts the thumb up, you're not sad.
In the
You're not
lava.
crying with Cameron.
Not the way he wants me to be. Sorry.
Playing with Cameron.
Ooh, let him know.
I mean, I think it's fine if we can, as an audience, get attached to a robot character. That's not my issue here. My issue is when you're like, this is why Blade Runner doesn't work for me, because it's like, oh, these beings are fighting for life, and I get what it's going for, but I'm like, it's still a robot. It's not a person, and I really cannot get past that. So when you try to make this allegory about how robots are oppressed, I'm like, they are not people. And I know maybe someday, like, robots will kill me for having that opinion. I'll take my chances. I think it's just not a good analog. Like, there are good ways to do that, and I think robots are just not it.
What about Ex Machina? That's a AI thing, right?
Oh, yeah, I like Ex Machina, but Ex Machina is not trying to do that, from my perspective.
Ex Machina tells you this is what happens when you fall in that trap.
Right.
'Cause I'm a robot.
Robot's bad.
I'm gonna trick you for what I want.
Ex Machina is excellent. I think that's probably my favorite AI movie.
Not artificial intelligence with Haley Joel Osment.
I have yet to see that.
It's literally called AI. That's why I asked.
I know.
What about Wally? Is he AI? Wally?
I would say yes.
That's an iRobot movie.
Yeah, I was trying to think if there's like a way you could make like iRobot walked so that X could run. I don't think there really is anything that this allowed to run.
No, the other movies prior to it did it better anyway. So no.
And certainly a lot since then, I think it's done it better. Like Ex Machina and Her, I think, are the two best. Even like Westworld, season 1 of Westworld is some good AI fiction.
What are they called in Westworld? They're called something else too.
Hosts is
Yeah,
the
there
word
you
for
go.
it.
There's another robot term.
Oh, they're so good. Season 1's so good.
But just season 1, unfortunately. I should rewatch season 1 of that. I haven't seen that since the first time. Did you guys have more on that topic? That was all in my notes.
Yeah, I was gonna say I've heard like the programmer could like that's programming the AI could be racist towards a group of people and program their creations to act prejudiced the same way. So that's just a IRL future danger.
I wouldn't say it's future, because I've heard, I mean, it's not like life or death, but I've heard, I don't know what the math on this is, but I've heard that like YouTube kind of does that a little bit with like favoring white creators in terms of like who they recommend. Again, I don't know the
Actually,
math
that's-
on it, but that's a thing that I've heard, and I
Yeah.
would not be surprised if it's true.
Yeah, actually, oh yeah, there was a Corey Kenshin video about that. Yeah, no, never mind. It's not even future, but it's not quote unquote dangerous just yet, but it's definitely happening. So make sure you watch. Keep an eye on who's making the robots, the hosts, the replicants, all of them.
Yes, that robot sausage gets made somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Who's making it?
Well, I don't even trust like Alexa at this point, so I don't know what that means. But I'm pretty not here for whatever their next iteration of that is.
You gonna be analog, Evan? You gonna be analog in the future? You're not gonna have any chrome, any cybernetic enhancements?
I don't know. My brother makes prosthetics, so if I ever need a fake limb, I can probably get one on a discount if is successful there. He's made a leg brace for me, but not because I need it. He just like practiced on me.
Did it turn evil?
No, it's just sitting on my mantelpiece thing.
Keep an eye on it.
I do, but it's plastic, so I'm not worried.
Can't trust a robot.
Mm-hmm. That's the truth.
Actually, I'm talking to you guys on a computer while recording this on my phone.
Hmm. I think Koffeld brought that up when we did Ex Machina. He was like, "Oh, so this must be very uncomfortable doing all of this over the internet."
Yeah. Yeah.
Hello, FBI guy. I hope you enjoy this.
I thought it was NSA. Are they both listening?
Highlight.
Are they both listening?
Which ones?
NSA and FBI? What up, y'all?
Probably.
Hopefully the CIA. Let's get it.
Hopefully your families are... I don't know if you guys are allowed to have families, but hopefully your families are doing well.
Wait, I hope you had a good Lunar New Year. I hope it's well.
Yeah. Don't kidnap us. Thank you.
I mean, all they're gonna hear us do is just shit on the Raimi movies and gush about Community more, so...
That's when they put us on mute. They're like, this again?
Probably muted all my Bane impressions.
No, I think they keep those on just to laugh at them. Let's move on to David's topic.
So yeah, my topic it pretty much has the overlap to the element that Evan was talking about with Sonny and how they don't really give him enough story-wise or plot-wise to make any of his dialogue moments work or sell whenever they're trying to kind of give him a point of view that you could actually like understand or believe. And that pretty much comes down to him having to be this like mystery nefarious robot mystery hero, and then also them trying to fit this trope in about like a child and a parent that is in so many sci-fi stories since Frankenstein. And I think it's a little over with, like Evan was saying, there's so many elements about this movie that's tired that you just need like
Pinocchio.
it's literally like it's just we need some fresh takes. And I think the corporate take was nuanced enough that if it was coming out today, that's what we would have seen. And I just don't think in 2004 that like we were saying like that was on the radar. Like people weren't thinking about how terrible corporations are and how they control everything that we consume. But I think this movie specifically with the parent-child storyline that they bring up a couple times in the beginning and the end in a few scenes is really underdeveloped. I've seen better in Edward Scissorhands. My favorite example of it is in a Star Trek Next Generation episode where Data pretty much just like copies his mainframe and puts it in a child, and there's this whole council called and a discussion of if a robot can be human, what does it mean to be human, what does it mean to not be human but have an offspring, do they need to be together, what are all these different elements that we kind of concern or are concerned with as like the basis of humanity, and if something isn't a human, how could they have done it? And it was so well done, and granted it's TV, so they have more time to explore that, but like that's no excuse for what we got in this movie. This movie just does not give any development to the impact that this creator could have had on Sonny, why Sonny is the way he is, why he thinks he's a child of this person, what that even means. There was nothing to Will Smith's character and that girl. If she wasn't a random girl, if it was his daughter, we could have had that whole like juxtaposition, because he could have actually really lost a child versus him thinking he's losing his father.
I mean, that'd be I Am Legend, though.
That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I Am Legend hadn't come out yet.
So there's so much about this movie that it just feels like they're throwing, like the way Knives Out was throwing stuff out the wall so intentionally, this is throwing everything at the wall so unintentionally, and it's just a mess. And instead of having a like actual story or cohesive anything, it's just a bunch of bits and pieces that could have been developed into something.
We didn't even see them interact, the Doctor and Sonny. Like,
Yeah, not even in flashback.
No.
they had never shared a line of dialogue in a flashback. Only thing we got was what Sonny said the Doctor told him. We've only ever saw the Doctor talk to Will Smith, and he was a hologram by that point, so...
Yeah, there was just no development there. And I think if there was development there, enough of a point of view there that made Sonny have a point of view that made sense to us as an audience, that could have been, like Evan was saying earlier, interesting to clash against Will Smith, especially if Will Smith doesn't change his point of view, and just kind of see the two go head to head. But they don't do that. It turns into the early 2000s green screen fest, and we get our best quips from Will Smith, and then a few sexy shots because you have to have him shirtless to get the ladies. And I was just like, this is something. This movie is something. This is Michael Bay's contribution to cinema, ladies and gentlemen. Movies like Bad Boys created this, and he perfected his craft with Transformers.
I don't think... Until I saw this movie, I don't remember ever seeing Will Smith shirtless.
He looks quite good with his shirt off.
Thanks, Evan.
He does.
Yeah.
So I was like, maybe this is why I rewatched it a ton as a kid. When he was in that shower, I was like, my God.
I mean, the other character also had a shower scene, whatever her name was. I don't think it matters.
I don't think it does either.
It might have been on my phone during that part of the movie. By the time it was an hour in, it could have been 3 hours. Like, I felt like I'd watched The Godfather. I was like, my God.
I watched it, like, I had to start and stop it, like, 3 separate times. Like, I didn't finish in one sitting. Those 2 hours felt pretty long. Evan, did you have anything else on Human Creator Robot Child?
Only that, like, I think if you were going to do that, we have to actually make Dr. Lanning a real character and show some of what he did in his real life with, because apparently all 3 of our main characters, Sonny, Spooner, and Calvin, all 3 of them apparently had some kind of relationship with him prior to his death.
I thought she was his daughter.
Yeah, wait, is she, or, like, because they don't share the same last name and she's not married, but I think there is a reference made to that at some point, so I don't know what's up with that.
That's like, why would you have a picture of the manager above you at a retail store in your house? Why did you even have a picture together at all?
Well, at this point, like, he's basically Elon Musk, so if you work at Tesla and you really like Elon Musk, maybe.
It was so weird, and then she was like crying at the photo, and I was like, the only way this makes sense...
That's me at Elon Musk.
The only way it makes sense is if she's his daughter. Like, why... I get maybe he was like a mentor to her. We don't know, because we never saw him speak outside of a hologram.
And like
Terrible
one
hologram.
video clip, I think, of him at like a press conference or something.
My responses are limited.
But
That
watching the movie
detective
this
is
time
the
really
right
proved
question.
to me how much of like me watching a movie as a kid was me not paying attention and filling in everything in with my own headcanon, because like
Nice.
I for sure thought, oh, that's Will Smith's ex-wife, because they're fighting and they're around the same age, they have to be divorced. Oh, that kid, that had to be Will Smith's daughter who died, because he's sad about a little girl dying.
The entirely white kid was Will Smith's daughter.
Literally. I mean, I think I may have
blondest
rationalized
girl
that
ever.
with them, I was like, in my mind, they were divorced. I was like, oh, she looks like her mom. And then,
I feel like I'm not gonna make fun of you, because I feel like I did stuff like that as a kid too. So
No, I definitely had that. I'm trying to... I know there's one that I've brought up. I won't derail it. I'm going to try to remember what it is.
I mean, you were adding more spice to the movie than the movie had, so props to
that's
you.
probably why I liked it more, because I was making my own movie in my head. Because I think I thought the same thing. I was like, and there's the grandfather. He's dead. And this is tragic. And then probably by the end, I was like, damn, this robot's taking this whole family out. Like, they gotta stop him. But that's not even this movie.
Yep. And then Sonny is their new kid, and then they get back together.
He's also a prophet that's going to lead them to liberation
Yep.
and better days.
Sonny
He doesn't
and the
know
three
what his
wolves.
purpose is, but he's going to lead them.
He's gonna split the desert with. He doesn't have weapons, or like a staff, or he's gonna step
With just
and
his
the desert's
extra
gonna-
hard alloy that
Yep.
his skin
Oh
is made
yeah,
of.
the super dense alloy.
Until like the sand gets into the little like ports and joints
Yep.
and like destroys it, and they're all just like dead in 2 weeks in the desert.
They all shut down. That was their purpose. That
He
detective
just Jonestowns them.
is the right question. This movie could have been better.
It could have been a lot better. Like, I would call this passable. First watch, if you're not thinking too much about it, like, it kind of works. I think it did for me the first time I saw it, but it does not hold up under almost
No, I
any
won't
kind
be
of
watching
scrutiny.
it again anytime soon. No.
No, I probably was never going to rewatch it again, like, barring us doing this.
Yeah, I'm good off of that.
The most interesting things we've had to talk about with it are talking about what it's not.
Yeah, that's not a good sign.
Yeah.
We don't have anything else. I don't think we could end the episode.
Yeah, okay. So our upcoming episodes, we have The Menu.
And Transformers: The Last Night.
Something we'll definitely cover. Because we all love it so much.
We're gonna watch all of them in one sitting. All of the Transformers movies.
What?
Yep, all of back to back.
Oh yeah, surprise, Dave. This thing we're definitely going to do.
Yes,
I
Michael
just
Bay.
watched like 2 of them recently. There's something else.
Good. Oh, I meant to mention like the CGI fights between the robots look like a Transformers movie because I could not follow it. Even though these are simpler designs, I was just like, I don't know what I'm looking at. We'll be watching better actual Transformers movies soon, with The Last Night and the rest of them in one sitting. Thank you.
That's not real. just in case people are confused. Jelani, if you want to pick that as your next one,
I
it's
wouldn't do
news
that
to me.
you guys. I consider you friends, not enemies.
Okay. I don't find those so torturous to watch, but I don't.
They get progressively worse, man.
We could do M. Night Shyamalan's Last Airbender.
Oh
Yeah, or we could drink bleach.
no,
Yeah.
no,
Yep.
God no! Oh my.
All right. Well, if you'd rather not drink bleach, but still want to hear us talk about some bad movies, you can go to our Patreon for $1 a month. Not everything we cover on there is bad. We get some of our harsher takes out there. We have our YouTube channel. We have a new video on Kingsman. You can rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. Our logo is by Kelsey Hendry. I am on Letterboxd at ev_Wes. Where are both of you?
Instagram, Jelani T. Kelly. Twitter, Jelani T. Kelly. YouTube, Jelani T. Kelly.
I'm in Gigi's apartment because I want to try some of that pie. I'm not even gonna lie to you.
God.
That's the one part. Any scene in Gigi's, I was suddenly awake. Like I was off my phone because that pie looked good.
Why did he scoop from the middle of it? What kind of... Who does that?
A monster.
Yes. He scooped straight. He just used a spoon. No knife, no fork. He scooped straight from the middle of the pie and was like, that's good. Nah, bro. Nah, he gotta go. We gotta boycott Dale Spooner.
Cancel him. He's a menace.
Cancel.
A criminal.
God damn it. Yeah, that's... Alright. See you next time. We're gonna be eating food with the menu. Bye-bye.
Yep. But you're not allowed to eat. You will not eat because it's the menu.
You will not eat. You will experience.
Is that a movie
Yes.
thing?
Oh, you'll see.
Okay.
Oh,
You will not eat.
Oh god, I can't wait. I'm gonna rewatch that movie.
Alright. Bye, guys.
All right. We'll see you guys next time.